leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me to the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. He prepares a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. He anointeth my head with oil. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, forever and ever. Amen. I had felt a strong calling to share publicly what I believe to be one of the most powerful sequence of words. And really, regardless of your cultural or religious identity, when we begin to unpack David's words of Psalm 23 in terms of the biofield, in terms of Prana, it is in fact a universally true, universally resonant frequency of words. And I feel particularly now moving through this collective pandemic, this collective crises. And we do remember that crises, when written in the Chinese character, is catastrophe married with opportunity. And so from where I'm sitting and in the shoes that I walk in, we have an opportunity to raise our collective consciousness, ascertain the necessary critical mass to create a beautiful new world for ourselves, for our children, and our children's children. And so I wanted to take a moment to really look at this poem and this prayer, this supplication in terms of the human experience outside of the Judeo or the Christian tradition. And so I'm just going to start off with, first and foremost, the common human experience is that we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. No one is exempt from that shadow, and we don't have the luxury of knowing when the director's going to call cut. We don't have the luxury of knowing when the last time we kiss our beloved goodbye is going to be. And so this isn't depressing, and it's just changing, and it's whatever was can never not be, the first law of physics, but looming every moment of every day for every human being, regardless of economic stature, regardless of what side of the border you live on, regardless of gender, race, or age. That shadow of death of the physical body is with us always. And we begin to learn to understand that creation and destruction are two sides of the same coin. And when we know that this shadow of death looms with us and is part of our creation, how do we choose to live this moment? How do we gaze upon our beloved? How do we treat the clerk at the 7-Eleven if those were the very last words we were to speak in this carnated form? And so if we can carry the shadow of a doubt with us, as David did, and as the power of this frequency of words does, how would we choose to be today, in the next moment, in the next moment, in the next moment? That's one powerful thing. So drawing that common denominator of the shadow of death, this is something that's true for all human beings. And then secondly, if we look at it from the pranic perspective, my physical body is my cup, the cup of my soul form that gives me a vehicle to operate in this dimensionality of form, in this dimensionality of the five senses. So as I fill my own cup up, the cup of this physical vessel up with prana, and I begin to expand the biofield, I'm able to, like Psalm 23, my cup runneth over. So at the end of a meditation, at the end of after having created the pranic tube, my cup runneth over. And it's only when our own cup runneth over that we're able to give to those around us. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about gaining energy vertically from source energy. So there's always going to be some lateral exchanges of energy. If we only have lateral exchanges of energy, we find ourselves in relationships where they are codependent. We find, and whether that's to a person or a substance or an activity or an attitude or a behavior. And so what we're really being asked to do is allowing our own cup to overflow with prana, and then we start to see our own torus field grow and expand larger, and only when this cup overfloweth that we may actually authentically and truthfully be able to give to those around us. That's another thing that this poem offers us, and I do have an article on it, so I'm not going to go on for too long, but the other point that I just wanted to say is that when we learn to lean on the staff of the realm of the unseen, so we're not leaning into the media for our information, and we're not leaning into everything tangible that we can touch, but no, the staff that guides us, the staff that we lean on to when we're afraid or when we want answers, is probably not going to be perceptible in these five, with these five senses. So lean into something that can't be smelt, that can't be tasted, that can't be seen, that can't be heard. Lean into that still, quiet voice within to guide you through hard times and joyful times. Those are the three primary points that I wanted to bring forth from that powerful prayer. And then I'd like to take a parenthetical moment just to say, why this is in my mind so much. And it's because in 1998, I decided I didn't want to watch TV anymore. And then in 2001, I decided I didn't want to watch any visual entertainment. So that included movies or anything that came to me through a screen. And part of it was that I had started my meditation practice, and I would sit down and I would be like gazing into the internal landscape, and I'd hear jingles from like hot dog commercials or just shit that I didn't want that in my landscape of my mind. So I thought, okay, let's cut that out. So for about 10 years, no movies, no television, nothing like that. So what I did was I started to, because I was bored at first, quite frankly, I started to memorize poems from many traditions, and I started to allow those poems to become like landmarks in my mind. And what I find now is that maybe I'm plagiarizing. I don't know why I'm plagiarizing, but these poems and these prayers that I've memorized, they constitute the texture of the landscape of my mind. And so almost every observable occurrence, there's like a poem or a prayer that goes along with it. And so when, I think it was 2003, I'd memorized the Psalm 23, and holy fuck, man, that sequence of words is powerful, and it doesn't matter what religion you identify with. Just repeating those words, it really fills the body up. When we look at how those words interact with water in terms of Dr. what was his name? The Japanese doctor who studied water. Water responds in such a beautiful way, creating such beautiful crystals to the power of those words. And I'm made up of 70 to 90% water in a given day, so I wanna make sure that my body is responding to thought forms and words that create beauty and truth and power and resonance with Gaia, with Earth, so that that Schumann resonance is my resonance. And I find the words of Psalm 23 to be so deeply impactful. So I wanted to share that with you. And when we can draw a conscious awareness to something, it becomes even more powerful. So before I say goodbye for right now, why don't we tune our pineal gland up and say, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. He preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. He anointeth my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, forever and ever. Amen." Namaste, my beauties.